This is Jillian G, and you are listening to the Black Synergy Podcast, where we are stronger together. Welcome to the Black Synergy Podcast. In today's episode, recorded earlier in the year, I spoke to Kansas playwright Michelle Tyrene Johnson about the process of playwriting and being a Black woman in the business of theater. Enjoy the show. All right, and welcome to the Black Synergy Podcast. I'm your host, Jillian G, and today we have with us playwright extraordinaire Michelle T. Johnson. Michelle, welcome to the show.
Hello, hey.
Okay, now, Michelle, this is, you are our second guest of the show, and I wanted to kind of have a bit of diversity when it comes to my guests. So obviously, having my significant other as a playwright and knowing several other playwrights, I wanted to, get some artists in the mix as well. Now, I know you have a law background. So tell me how you got into writing plays.
You cut out on me a little bit, but I had a what background?
You have a law background.
Oh, I've been a writer pretty much my whole life. So, writing is something I've always done, no matter what, job, sign my paycheck. And I was a journalist for several years. That's what I did right after I graduated from college. Then I was a lawyer for several years after that. And then I stopped practicing law about it's 2017. Oh God, 14 years now. So I built a diversity and inclusion business. So I do diversity training. So playwriting just is something that came along the way. I've had columns. I've written nonfiction books. Although my fiction hasn't been published, and the playwriting is just something that came along. I'd say late in life, in my mid-40s, and it's just kind of sort of been the fiction that's taken off.
Okay, and did you have any formal training in playwriting?
None at all. In fact, I'm embarrassed to say I did not do a whole lot of theater before I started writing. It was, people have always told me that the best part of my fiction writing was my dialogue and so I just decided to cut out the middleman. Okay. All right.
Now, how did you get from the, Midwest? I know you've done a lot of theater in Kansas City. How did you get from the Midwest to, Philly and the New York theater scene?
I've been really lucky. I have someone yesterday who's a playwright who lives out in Philly, who lives out east, goes, how come you get all this stuff out here? And I said, one of the things I do is that I submit to festivals and people do my work. And then people hear about my work and they ask to read something. And they're like, well, okay, we want to do it. So I've been fortunate that by putting my work out there, it seems to attract people who want to see and hear more of my work. Okay. So I think I've just been fortunate.
Okay. Now, when you submit to those festivals and, do you have, are there specific ones that you, regularly work with, or is it just, kind of random?
No, it's funny. I'm going to coincidentally be in New York 3 different times just between now and May for three different things. 2 of them one's a festival, one's a reading at the National Black Theater Company, because I had submitted something that they didn't pick, but they said, but we still like to have you be in our reading series. So that's what I'm going to be out there in March for. I'm going to be in the Fire this time with a 10-minute piece and a 20-minute piece. That's this month, so that's why I'm going to be in New York in a couple weeks. And then in May, my play Echoes of Octavia, which reading is going to be having another reading in May before it goes into full production next year. So again, it's just been how the ball has bounced my stuff around. It's been pretty cool.
Okay.
And it's funny because a lot of the stuff has happened in New York. I can't buy somebody festival in Chicago, which is much closer to me than to the New York City.
Right.
I can't buy a Chicago festival.
Now, you mentioned Echoes of Octavia, and if I'm not mistaken, I think that was the last time that we saw each other, and that was a fantastic, play. It was a really, really, really good reading. The cast did a really, really good job in that staged reading. Now, when it comes to, your play, your work is, political, how much of, the world around us, and how much does it inform your work, culturally?
Yeah, the beauty of being a fiction writer, as opposed to fiction work that I did for years, and that I still do, I have a column locally, is that I can take the world and recreate it however I want to. And so I can address whatever I want to. And because it's a lot of work to write a play, even a 10-minute play isn't something that, I scribble on a napkin, during dinner. I only like to bother with topics and with creating characters that speak to something that I care about. And right now, I care a lot about not so much politics, but social justice, and that even in my lighter pieces, that creeps in because that's important to me. And I think that there's never enough stories out there to present different faces on those important issues.
Okay. And I know one of your other plays, Wiccans in the Hood, that was very, very interesting. I didn't get to see it or read it, but I heard a lot about it. Now how does spirituality, take part in that at all?
Yeah, it's a play that is actually more about religious misunderstanding than it is racial misunderstanding, although there is some, there's a racial piece that's part of it, because one of the themes of it for me is, in essence, everybody's religion, everybody's spiritual practice looks strange to somebody else. That people love to act like they've got the way, that their God, their book, their whatever is the way, but the practices of everybody's religion look really crazy if you look at it from the perspective of someone completely different.
Yeah.
And that's controversial. It's controversial, especially the more religious somebody is.
Mm-hmm.
How dare you say my religion is controversial? Well, it is to somebody who doesn't share your religion.
Right. Now, walk me through your process. What's your writing process like? Are you a plotter? Do you outline? Do you sit and think about? Do your characters speak to you first? Take me through your process.
Every process is different for what I write, but I guess if I look at what happens with most of my plays, I go, first, what is it that I want to say? What's the point of even writing this play? Then I go, what characters would exist to make that point? And then I go, what situation would these characters be in for this to come through? So for me, it's about the point and the people, and then the plot flows from that. And see, I got to write that down because I never quite thought of it that way before. I got the 3 P's of playwriting that I've invented for myself. No idea.
Okay. Now, do you hold readings for your plays as you're writing and rewriting them?
Not necessarily. Every play is different. It's not to be egotistical, but my first audience is myself. It's got to make sense to me. It's got to be there for me. And then, sometimes I have a reading. Sometimes I send it in and hope that what I meant to write comes through for someone reading it. I mean, I've had plays that literally I've seen on stage that I've never seen. I've never heard of the play other than my own voice saying the lines out loud until I drive or travel there and see the play.
Okay, all right. Now,
which is weird because that's weird to hear stuff for the first time between the writing room I'm sitting in right now and seeing it on a stage. And sometimes I hear really bad stuff. I'm like, ooh. I'm like, oh, I did. And then sometimes I hear really good stuff. I'm like, ooh, who wrote that? I'm like, oh, I did. So it's a process for sure.
Okay. Now, once you've submitted and once you've heard back from the festivals and and the theater companies, how involved are you, in that process of helping with the, whether it's a reading, a stage reading, or a full out production?
Literally every single thing is different. I mean, my two plays, I mean, again, they're shorter pieces that are in the festival in New York. I mean, I am not part of the rehearsal process other than them sending me rehearsal notes. So I'm sure it's fine. And I just, when I fly there and go to New York, I will just take what's on stage, based on just my play. I have a play in Columbia, Missouri at a reading next month. I'll be participating in the rehearsals because they're over the weekend. When I go to my reading in March in New York, I probably will only be able to make one or two of the rehearsals. So, I mean, every process is different. Obviously, when something's here in Kansas City, I can be part of the rehearsal from beginning to end, but, that's not the, I have just as much stuff that is someplace else that's here, but it's trust, it's communication, and you just kind of hope it all works out.
Do you do anything other than writing plays?
I have been. I haven't been working on it as much as I meant to. I had as you probably know, because we're Facebook friends. I've had a death in the family. I lost my grandmother a couple of months ago, thrown me off my writing game the last couple of months. That and the election. The election happened 2 weeks before her death. So the last couple of months I've been kind of out of it, but I have been working on some screen work, small and big. I don't know where either one of those are going to go, but I have been trying to sort of expand my storytelling genres. I love the stage. I love the immediacy and the intimacy and the fact that you have to, in my opinion, because what do I know? I haven't really written a movie or a TV show. I like that because you can't just be all over the place, time, at least space-wise, you have to be real clear on how you're going to tell that story. Because, a lot of times it's just one setting, maybe two or three. And so whatever you got to say, I like the focused urgency of stage writing.
Mm-hmm. Now, what was the motivation behind, at least trying to get into screenwriting?
Money. I mean, just to be honest, don't get me wrong. I love TV and I love movies, but let's just keep it real. Money. If I can find a way to get somebody to like something I do and to pay me more money so that I can, do more theater, and keep my lights on and keep my belly in sushi, then I'm good.
Okay, listen, you got to keep it all the way real.
I'm just keeping it all the way real. Again, I love screen work, but that's one of my motivations. Is I'm trying to get my Shonda Rhimes on.
Listen, can't be mad at that because Queen Shonda is, ruler over everything good and holy on TV. So can't be mad at that.
Exactly.
Now,
I mean, I could lie and give some highfalutin reason, but I'm just saying it's. I like my storytelling and I like money.
okay, listen, don't we all? Okay, answer
Right.
me this: what advice would you have for a young writer, someone who is um, maybe trying to make that transition? Because there are a lot of people who have have different backgrounds. Like you came from law and journalism, and maybe they don't know how to make that transition into something completely different. What advice would you give?
Well, for one thing, I don't. I think the biggest problem people have is thinking that everything has to be an either or. I'm a playwright who has to go to work every day.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not like I quit law to be a playwright. I quit journalism to be a playwright. I mean, I work at a school part-time. I'm the writing center coordinator at actually the high school I graduated from.
Mm-hmm.
And I work part-time because I want to have more time to write. But, you have to be willing to spend the time doing it. And I'm not saying that someone needs to go part-time because people have other obligations. People, have their bills to pay. But, there's never an excuse to not just start where you are. Never, ever, ever. I mean, at the time I started writing plays, I was unemployed. So it was also an outlet for me as I was dealing with a lot of things. But then, I've written, even when I was I've written a couple of novels when I was working full-time as an attorney. And that's not an easy job, but if it's something that matters to you, you find the time. Whether it's you do it in the morning, you do it in the evening, you find some time in the weekend. You just write until you finish something. Then you do it again. And you'll do it again, and that's what my observation is of a lot of people. They want the results of what you do. I really want the process of what you do.
Mm-hmm.
And so they're like, "Oh, how'd you get a play on stage?" Well, for one, you got to write the play to be on stage, and then you got to do a lot of submitting. I mean, a whole lot of being a writer is submitting and networking. I mean, it would be nice if all I did was write a play and then the universe found it sitting in my computer, but that's just not how life works.
Okay, well, and one of the things that I know a lot of people, struggle with, having, a day job, and then you have, what your real passion is, whether it's, acting or singing or, anything in the arts or, starting a business, if you're a chef or a home cook or anything like that. So, that's one of the things that always interests me, how people, find the balance, because that's I think that's one of the things that, that just a lot of people have trouble with, is just finding that balance and, finding the motivation to keep going, because what if, the artsy side is not going so well, and, you're like, well, do I have to stay at this job forever? And, things like that. So how do you stay, motivated when, it may be a dry season, if maybe you don't hear anything back from, all of the things that you've submitted?
You just got to keep submitting. I mean, it's, and maybe it's because of the jobs I've had in my life where I don't understand the concept of constantly waiting before you move forward. I mean, when I was a newspaper reporter, I was a newspaper reporter. The paper comes out every day, not some days, not a few days. It's a daily newspaper, so that means that as soon as one story has run, I mean, you can have a front page story that is like the story on everybody's lips. You immediately need to be working on the next story. I mean, and so same thing with law. I mean, you're working on a case. Cases. I was an employment lawyer, working on the defense side, representing companies. Lawsuits investigations, complaints took years. And so you can't just work on one case. You're usually juggling a caseload because there's always something to do, So I guess I bring that to playwriting, which is why coming into playwriting at 46 versus coming into it at 22, all the things I feel behind on by coming into it late in life, I have things that I come into it with an advantage, and one of them is that sense of, and every time I apply for something, no matter how much I want it, I better apply for something else real quick.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not that I'm always applying because, or submitting. Literally there can be like 3 months to go by that I don't submit something. But then if I start submitting, I can't just submit something and then sit on my hands and wait.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not a good waiter. Ask the mail carrier who I practically attacked, who had my bar results 21 years ago. It's like, I need my bar mail right now. So I'm not a good waiter. So that's why I have to keep it moving so that I'm not overly focused on, okay, what's going to happen? Because I'm going to do that anyway.
Mm-hmm.
So, that's the thing. And there are dry spells. There are some weeks where I get rejection after rejection after rejection. I'm afraid to open up a damn email because it's like I've got a bunch of rejections. And so that's why when you see me post on Facebook something good that's happened, it's like, y'all don't know how many no's I got to get that yes.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of folks don't seem to want to do that. If they don't get the yes the first, second, third, fourth, 10th time, it's like, oh, I'm not any good at this, I'm done. So, that's just, I think tenacity is as important as talent.
Okay. And I definitely, understand that because, you have to, in anything, you have to hustle and really have the drive to, want to achieve. You have to have
yes.
that. Now,
yeah.
Talk to me a little bit about, being a Black woman in the theater, as a playwright. How has your experience been with that?
Yeah, it's interesting because I was about to bring that up before you asked, because, when you were talking about hustle, it's about, when I said tenacity, you got to keep your hustle on. I was going to say, and as a Black woman, I for real know I got to keep my hustle on, because theater is like every other thing I've done in life. In some ways, it's worse. It's like law. It's like journalism. It's their professions, their fields that are dominated by white boys.
Mm-hmm.
And white boys who aren't used to power sharing, who aren't used to having to consider that there are other people telling different stories who are considered just as good as they are. And the number of times I've seen or heard of, white male playwrights, particularly on a certain Facebook group that I'm on, a international Facebook group that I'm on, where white men will act like, it's just hard for me to get a break. All these people want, women and minority playwrights, and I just can't. And it's like, okay, but if you look at the poll, look at the Dramatists Guild did, not even a survey, they went just 2 years ago to see who gets the productions in this country, and they broke it down by race and gender. Women of color only get, let me make sure I get this number right, only get 3.7% of the productions.
Wow. That's
not even Black women. That's women of color.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? That's Black women, Latino, Asian, Native American, and men, white men, American and foreign-born white men in American productions have something like 76% of the productions.
Mm.
So if you're a white male who isn't getting productions, it's not because I took a production away from you, statistically speaking. It's because another white guy did. But as with employment, I saw this all the time, doing diversity work and employment work. I mean, that's the way people look at things. So, is it difficult to be a Black woman in theater? Yeah, but I'm used to that. I mean, it's also glorious. It's also wonderful because, there are enough people who are hungry to see different stories on stage. So I look at it as, one of my greatest achievements is that the Jewish Ensemble Theater out of Detroit just picked my play Passover to be one of their 4 finalists in their new work series out of, over 100. Don't put this in because they don't want the number in, but over 100 people submitted, and they picked four plays to be finalists that they're going to do a stage reading of this summer. And of my 5 characters, 2 are Black and only 2 are Jewish. And so it's that I'm more excited about that than just about anything, because it shows that I can tell a story in part about another culture and do it right. Mm-hmm. And for me, that's no small thing. So it's not about I just write about Black people, even though I would have no problem to just write about Black people. But it's about having stories to tell that maybe just aren't the same old take that everybody sees.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Now that brings me to another question. What do you think? I year before there was a big probably not too big, but there was a controversy regarding colorblind casting. And there was, they tried to cast white man as Martin Luther King Jr. in Katori Hall's The Mountaintop. Yeah. So what is your take on colorblind casting?
I don't believe in colorblind casting. I don't believe in colorblind, period. Sure, there are minor parts in anything, a play, a TV show, a movie, where the race of the person is irrelevant. But if you're writing a good play that's specific, then in general, those people should pop. And if they pop, most of us have a race. Most of us have a gender. Sure, there are plays where, you can interchange on that. But, you look at Hamilton. His conceit is that he wrote a musical where the founding fathers were deliberately played by people of color. Mm-hmm. That's not the play that To the Mountaintop was. Mm-hmm. As I've always said, if somebody writes the play, and I may write that play, where Martin Luther King Jr. is played by a white person, that's going to be a deliberate choice, because the point of the play would be, how would people take the same things coming from a white man? You can see that right now, mm-hmm. Or if Martin Luther King Jr. was a woman, how differently would the civil rights movement be, right? Mm-hmm. So I don't, again, I just don't believe that you can be loosey-goosey and interchangeable with race, because think about how many times you've gone to see a play and your brain is stuck on, was that casting choice deliberate? And I remember a play I saw, Good People. I think that's the name of the play. And it's about white guy from a blue-collar neighborhood in Boston who becomes a doctor, and then when you move to the scene where he's in his fancy house, doctor house, and his wife comes in the room, and his wife, he's white, and his, blue-collar, kind of racist background, his wife comes in and she's Black. Mm. So I hadn't read the play before I saw the play, so I'm like, that's an interesting choice to make his wife Black, which I'm sure everybody in the room who didn't know the play was thinking. And then you find out that that's part of the plot. A Black woman, and who's from a better family than he's from. So his She's from money. He's the one who's from dollar roots who didn't have any money, and he married a black woman with money. And so I was like, oh my God, I love this. That's brilliant. But it's always the best example of my point. If it wasn't, if they had just thrown in a black woman, a dark-skinned black woman married to this man, yes, it would have still been a good play, but you would have been thrown out of the story because that wouldn't have matched the character that they had put on that stage of the doctor. And so that's why I'm not a believer in colorblind casting when people get cute with it. Because unless that's the playwright's point, unless the playwright is trying to say something, then directors trying to get cute could completely, just like age, just like if you have a 20-something-year-old male character and his wife is a 65-year-old woman, no matter how attractive she is, it don't matter if it's, Sophia Loren, whoever is the hot, 60-something-year-old mama of the moment, you're going to be the whole play. If age is not, if the age difference isn't part of that plot, you're going to be like, really? I mean, she's a good actress, but really? So, I mean, I find it insulting that people know that they can't do that with age or other things, but we can be mix and matchy with race, and then be offended when somebody else points that out.
Right, and
girl, this is my topic. This is my topic.
I know, Miss Diversity Diva. Now, and it's so funny because not even 20 minutes before this interview, I was, perusing the internet, and I saw pictures of this upcoming movie about Michael Jackson, and they have Joseph Fiennes playing Michael Jackson.
Yes.
And he looks completely ridiculous.
But at least it's a farce.
Listen, it's so crazy, and it's funny to me because, there were so many people, so many people are up in arms about it. And they're saying, well, why can't, a white man play Michael Jackson, but at the same time, if it was the opposite way around, if it was the other way around, would they really want, a black man playing Elvis or, whoever, they hold in high esteem?
Exactly.
Well, now you said that you're participating in the Fire. Is it the Fire This Time Festival up in Harlem? Do you have any exact dates?
It's not that. It's at the Crane Theater, actually in Lower Manhattan.
Oh, okay, okay.
Yeah, that's where the Fire This Time. It's I'm going to be there the second week of the festival. It opens next week, and it's 3 weeks. And they won an Obie last year, so they're a pretty well-respected festival. I'm excited. I'm really excited. I wish I could be there the whole festival, but alas, life in Kansas City as a working girl who has to, get there does not allow for that. Maybe one day, but it's very exciting. I'm very excited about that. It's a festival that supports and highlights up-and-coming African-American playwrights. So that makes me excited that in year 8, I made the cut.
Okay. And so tell us where we can find you on social media.
The best way to find me as a playwright is my Facebook page, which is Playwright Michelle Tyrene Johnson. In fact, if you're gonna refer to me, I've moved from going from Michelle T. Johnson to Michelle Tyrene, right? Just because it stands out a little bit more, it pops a little more. So so if you go look me up on Facebook, it's a public page, and you can kind of keep up with what's going on with me.
Okay, awesome. Well, good luck in the upcoming festival and in the upcoming months, with all your, and thank you so much for coming on the show. I really appreciate it. It was great having you.
I was honored that you asked.
Yes, and I will talk to you later.
Okay, bye-bye. Thank you.
That concludes my interview with playwright Michelle Tyrene Johnson. Check out the show notes at blacksynergypodcast.com/playwrightmtj to learn more about Michelle and her work. Thanks for listening. If you haven't subscribed, the podcast is available on iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, and TuneIn Radio. Please subscribe and leave a review. And don't forget to follow the show at Black Synergy on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Thanks for listening.